This is the Jepson Conversations in Leadership series, and today we're talking to Dr. James Hamblin, who will be presenting tonight at the Jepson Forum on the media's role in public health. So welcome to the University of Richmond.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So my first question is, in general, how do you see your responsibility as a public health reporter?
Reporter's an interesting term. I think the responsibility differs from story to story. I think you have responsibilities. It's firstly to your audience and to accurately report information in an engaging way that ideally is advancing what is the consensus for scientific understanding of what will advance health.
Yeah.
That's very broad, but it's easier to say what not to do than what to do. And especially in magazine writing, it's kind of different. Oftentimes we're working at a long time lag, and we're kind of thinking ahead about sort of driving a conversation, because you can't really be writing about news when you're working on a story 3 or 4 months ahead. So there's difference sometimes when you're covering news versus when you are
Maybe journalist instead of reporter.
Yeah,
I would say it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a trade-off between being accessible and being accurate?
No.
No.
Okay, well, so even I think academic journal articles, which strive, they throw accessibility out the window, and they're striving just for accuracy. Just don't worry about engaging the reader, just make sure everything is here. And even there, you're necessarily omitting some information. There's always more that you could describe in the background. There's always more that you could say that you're kind of picking and choosing the information. So in terms of accuracy, I think that's the easiest place to get people is you make a statement that's not necessarily incorrect, but it's incompletely correct. And you're just necessarily, you always are. And anytime you write about a study and you're covering some important new study in an accessible way, you are leaving some stuff out that was in the journal article. And you are not talking to every single expert. And you are not reading every book that has been written on the subject, so then you're at least incompletely correct. So, but that shouldn't silence people, that shouldn't make them afraid. Like, if I can't write the definitive text on something, then I will be totally silent.
One thing I wonder about sometimes with public health reporting is it seems like, in addition to maybe an accuracy, accessibility trade-off, there might be a kind of trade-off between giving people information that's really important for preventative medicine, but also avoiding stigma. And so, lose weight, exercise, stop smoking. But also you don't want to stigmatize people who are overweight or stigmatize smokers or make people feel shamed or guilty in that way. And so that seems like, I would think that'd be a really hard balancing act.
Right. I mean, I think that's kind of an ethical question, right? Where you're looking at the greater good, where we have cardiovascular disease being the #1 cause of death in the country, and that's strongly tied to obesity. And you certainly don't want to be callous in talking about that as a health issue, but if you can't because you're worried about people feeling negatively about it, then a lot of people will die. If we can't talk accurately about getting good food and having livable communities where people can exercise and live healthy lifestyles, and saying that is a good thing, then, I mean, people suffer from illness and die. So as long as, I think it's much easier to stay positive, talk about what people can do, offer solutions and help for people who do want to try to be healthier.
Are you sort of strategic in how you think about public health reporting and thinking I don't want to alienate these people, or I don't want to turn these people off, and so you change your message? So, for example, talking about vaccines, there's certain ways of talking about vaccines that make people actually less likely to vaccinate, things like that.
Yeah.
Or politics, anything getting involved with politics,
Yeah, that's it's such an important point, because people have, not to be too binary about it, but there's kind of 2 different ways that people process information, and especially with health. There's some people who just want to be told, okay, what's good and what's not, and tell me what to do, and be the doctor who sits and says, listen, we're going to get through this. Here's what I think we should do. It's a really safe procedure. It's going to go fine. Like, the odds of recovery are good. And if you mention the risk to a person who wants to be treated like that, they kind of focus on the risk. And then they're like, I don't know. They said that there could be bleeding. I don't think I should do it.
Yeah.
Then there's other people who are very analytical and want to hear all the percentages of the outcomes and what all the, really break it down and make an informed decision together. And as a doctor, you can figure out what kind of person you are dealing with, what mode of thinking. It's not one's not more intelligent than the other, or one's not worse. It's just how we deal when we're sick and whether we want a peer or a mentor. And so then you go to the public space and you don't know who you're talking to, right? You can say vaccines are safe, and a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, good, I didn't." But then you mention the 1 in a million chance of a febrile seizure, and saying that that's not even caused by the vaccine. That's caused by the fever that might be precipitated if the child gets a fever from the vaccine, and that is all that some people will hear.
Yeah.
So, kind of, you have to, and especially in the age of the internet, everything could potentially go anywhere.
Yeah.
You don't know it's just Atlantic subscribers who are reading this. So try to, be humble and delicate and empathetic to people's concerns, and realize that nobody wants to be scared of getting sick, so don't try to be too antagonistic.
Yeah, so you've said elsewhere of like public health reporting, like sometimes it's way too alarmist, or kind of like, oh, like everything's a panic, everything's gonna, be something you should be afraid of. And so I've read things that you've written of saying, sometimes science journalists should be cautious about promoting alarmism or stoking fear. On the other hand, I was super terrified by that piece that you wrote about the toxins that threaten our brains.
That's a scary headline, isn't it?
Yeah, and so when you think that fear or alarmism is worried, like what standards of evidence do you kind of hold yourself to for thinking like, this is really newsworthy and we all should be really freaking the hell out versus maybe this is all hype,
Right.
Like, what's the standard of evidence that you kind of think about for that?
Every story is going to be unique. It depends. You should hopefully have talked to a lot of people and examined a lot of evidence and been following something for a long time before you get into fear. It's such a powerful emotion, but a lot of people don't. They'll kind of venture into that territory without knowing too much about it. In the case of Toxic Substances Control Act, that's something that many people who follow this closely are concerned about. And sometimes, if you are making a point that inspires fear, I'm hoping that I'm looking at something at a systemic level, right? So any single individual chemical exposure, the risk is so tiny as to be probably not reported on. When you do look at a system that grandfathers in tens of thousands of chemicals, some of which do have legitimate scientific concerns, you're looking at not wanting to scare people, but saying there is this huge loophole, it's being ignored, let's look at that. And
yeah, I'm still freaked out. 1 to 10, how scared should I be that instead of eating organic produce, I ate a bunch of Flaming Hot Cheetos when I was pregnant? I ate some organic produce, but lots.
So it's in the past, so unless you have some way to travel backwards, I wouldn't be scared at all. Oh. But that's an ethical question,
maybe
right?
That's the wrong kind of reason for us to consider, though. Do people ask you stuff like that all the time? Like, here's my health issue.
And relative risk is so hard to calculate. You're usually looking at populations, right? And then you're talking about really small numbers and effects that can be really subtle. And on the whole, it makes people turn kind of anti-science, right? Chemicals are bad, so we have this binary way of thinking, and I certainly don't want to inspire that. So, I try to stay on.
No, it's okay. I'm not too.
I'm sorry about the.
It's okay.
Chemical piece, but.
No, maybe I should be.
No, and I keep, you
call your congressman, right?
Yeah. Do.
I guess that's the thing. Do you find it really annoying when people ask you about, like, all of their health questions all the time?
No, I love it because I don't practice medicine anymore. So, but I do read about it all the time and talk to a lot of people who are really smart, and so I feel like I'm up on a lot of stuff. In fact, I'm probably, like, my broad knowledge base is better than most doctors who are specialized in something.
Right, yeah.
So it's fun to help people.
You've also written about outrage in internet culture, so like remember like Cecil the Lion and all
Yeah, that was a great story.
Oh my god.
Remember how everyone's still talking about Cecil right now?
Right. This is like the worst thing that has happened in recent memory is clearly that dentist, right? So is this something that you worry about since you write about sort of issues like health and policy on the internet?
Yeah. I worry about it in a very serious way. It's not Cecil and it's not just Trump.
Yeah.
It's all public discourse right now becoming so polarized.
Yeah.
And I mean, you see that in the two parties are becoming more polarized, the candidates on both sides, and they represent what is demanded of them by a public that if you don't say the most radical thing, you don't get heard because there's so many voices out there right now. So the democratization of media, good thing, people have voices, more people are being heard than ever before.
Yeah.
Bad thing, the people who actually cut through are the most radical, and it rewards that radicalism. It rewards outrage to the most extreme. It does not reward, there's some pluses and some minuses, and then you just you're called weak, and no one cares. So it's dangerous.
I saw that with the Food Babe story, that you sort of got it from both sides, where some people were like, too easy on Food Babe, and some people were like,
oh, like in the comments?
Hard. Yeah.
Oh, don't read the comments ever.
You'll read the comments?
I mean, I can't for my own health. Like, I think...
Do you read your Twitter mentions?
If people want to... yeah. If people want to engage in real dialogue. So the comments section is a microcosm of the internet as a whole, and it rewards the most intense comments.
Yeah.
You need to take a position. And a lot of people are, like, trolling is when you go in there to incite, to rile people up. Like, you go in there to take the contradictory position and try to get a lot of upvotes. And so you have people who aren't even honestly engaging with what they think, let alone coming in there just to mess with you. So, like, I mean, people email me all the time, and I, like, enjoy corresponding with readers when I can and at least hearing what they have to say. There's plenty of ways for me to send. I'm not trying to, like, live in a bubble.
No, I didn't mean to tell you what was happening in the comments.
Yeah.
Maybe now we're even for that toxin story, so we'll both have anxiety.
Well, so many people had come down on the Food Babe that I thought, it's a more interesting story to try to understand where people are coming from in an earnest way. And, like, the story of she's saying inaccurate things that scare people has been told a million places. So
no, I thought that was a really good piece.
Oh, thank you.
Good story. Here at the Jepson School, we're starting this new thing about science leadership where we're trying to integrate the natural sciences with liberal arts, social science, humanities. And some of my favorite writers are physicians who do just that. So, Atul Gawande, Oliver Sacks, you, right?
No,
I'll put you on the list. It'll be fun.
I don't belong on that list.
It's a good list. Just take it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited about the program because I just love that stuff. And I was wondering, how do you think knowledge of things like culture, literature, performing arts, social science, how does that inform medicine? Like, what's the value of that within medicine?
Yeah.
How should people approach their medical careers if that's what they're thinking with that in mind?
I always tell people that as undergrads, that's the time to study something that's not biology or chemistry, if you can.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking about those areas, you start appreciating health, what you're setting out to do with medicine. If we define medicine as sort of our mainstream medical system, procedures and pills, and health as this bigger state of total well-being and absence of any infirmity, and not just that, but actually being happy and thriving. Which our medical system doesn't quite care for.
Right.
You start to think of the bigger picture and not just, can I do this medical intervention, but should I? How do I use my work to reach the most people? How do I treat a patient not as a case of a disease, but as a whole person?
Right. So like instead of making the goal maybe like normal species functioning, like maybe there could be other things we add to the list with like the goal of health education.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I mean, certainly for health education, and then for
Yeah.
medical education, it's just it's so complex because you end up treating these, you know, something like diabetic foot ulcers with surgery and debridement, and you're kind of treating downstream symptoms of an upstream cause.
Right, the social determinants of health, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oof, yeah.
I mean, so it's hard to say like, oh well, medicine only deals in the domain of getting people back on their feet walking, or back to a semi-normal lifestyle, but it's really hard, I think, in the day-to-day for physicians to think about that when they're just there's clearly a lot of upstream problems.
Yeah. So for your own education, what are the most important things that you learned as you've sort of transitioned from medicine into video and long-form journalism? Like, what were the things that you had to learn for that transition that really helped?
Yeah. Well, when I started, we were doing. This was like in 2012 when I made the transition. It was
way back when.
It was more. That's like forever in internet years. And if you remember 2012, then you remember there was just a lot more blogginess than. It was kind of like real journalism still in print. That's where you go to expect real journalism. What's on the web is just that's like internet stuff, and you can kind of just put up anything, and everyone is sort of block quoting and linking to each other's things, and you don't expect a web native publication to be coming out with like a great a real reported story that wasn't in the print version. And we've made that transition during the time that I was there, and you slow your pace. The Atlantic's audience has been fortunate to grow a lot during that time, and so the profile of what you're doing is raised. There's more attention on every single thing you do. So you can do better journalism, and that's great, but for me when you come in an entry-level position, you kind of either have you have a lot of knowledge base on the subject, or you have a lot of journalism experience, and you're going to gain that. Mm-hmm. And if you have both, a lot of journalism experience and a lot of knowledge on the beat, then you're a senior level person. So I had the knowledge base. I didn't have the journalism cred, and so that has been what I've learned just by consuming as much as I can and talking to as many people as I can. And in the same way that as someone who just graduated from journalism school and was supposed to cover medicine,
right.
Would learn about medicine. You know, they didn't go to medical school, and they're supposed to be writing about the latest medical advances. That's really tough.
Yeah. Are there any people who you see their career and you're like, that's like, I want to go there? Like, that's the kind of person where like, I really admire their career. Like, I want to get their superpowers.
Oh man.
Kind of person.
I think Atul Wande is great. I'm constantly thinking about going back to clinical practice so that I could do both. I think it's been beneficial to have a time where I'm focusing purely on writing, just because I'm starting to get okay at it, or a place where I don't hate like everything that I write. But now you can get too into it, and where you're spending, you lose the originality that you're bringing from your own life, because you just are a reporter or writer the whole time. But also Stephen Colbert is kind of a hero of mine, just because he's so funny and he's so sharp and he's doing important things, and I think he reaches so many more people and gets them to think outside the box than so many people who are doing it in like serious ways.
Yeah, those are both great choices. What do you miss about medicine that makes you think about going back?
What
did you like about
medicine?
medicine?
So the feeling of reaching a lot of people, making a difference, getting to learn about new exciting things all the time, those are all great things that I have right now. And I mean, I'm very fortunate to have the job that I have, but you miss the one-on-one interactions with patients. I mean, it's pretty much that simple. And then getting the feel for what inside the system is good and what is not, and being part of the medical community that you are trying to help and trying to constantly improve. And I mean, so many people within the profession are, but it's hard. It's really hard to have a balance because it's such an all-consuming profession.
Right.
That when people do write, they tend to be kind of in doctor speak and just like they're writing in a chart almost, and so it becomes the job of the journalist to kind of be the storytellers.
Yeah. No, people who do both, it's like.
Yeah. Well, it's why I think most people can count them
Right.
on a couple hands. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of great doctors will write like one book and a couple op-eds, and that's nothing to scoff at, but they're not household names who you know about, even though a lot of them have a lot of great things to say and need to be heard.
All right, let's do pro-con.
Okay.
Good, bad. All right.
Yep, I like me, I like eliminating nuance and just going
That's right, like
full bore.
Forget subtlety. This is going on the internet. So
yeah.
Okay. WebMD.
Oh man. It's too big. You'd have to ask me. I really am gonna try not to do this.
You can do it.
Okay. Let's say like direct to consumer health information. Good. I think WebMD has a lot of multiple doctor reviewed articles, and I don't think I've come across inaccurate stuff on there myself. I haven't read much of it, but
yeah, you don't need to. Just like
there's tons that I don't know. Like I think that's an important part of like a distinction between like a journalist and a doctor is a lot of doctors are like, I mean, their career is their knowledge base and are not into ever admitting that there's anything they don't know. And journalists are kind of supposed to be like just wide open to the world and just please tell me I don't know. Okay, WebMD Pro.
Yeah, good. So you don't think like Mindy Kaling has this line in one of her shows where she's playing a doctor and someone brings a printout from WebMD and she's like, this is like going to a 5-star restaurant and bringing a recipe for the chef. She says that. You wouldn't be offended by that though.
Oh man. I think it's so wonderful that people are engaged. I think doctors see it as a too many doctors see it as a threat. But it's something you have to live with. There's just no way that people are not going to go home and immediately, or right there, start Googling the thing that you just told them.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't trust you, but use it as a tool. It's a thing you don't have to go around saying, okay, you have been diagnosed with hypertension. Here's everything that hypertension means.
Right.
Here's the great resource I can direct you to.
Look it up. Sugar.
That's so funny that you say that because I actually have this question of the binary about sugar in my talk later. So fruits and vegetables are the staple of my diet now, and I think the staple of most healthy diets, and fruits are loaded with sugar. Yeah. And when you eat them in the context of a whole food where they come with fiber, then
pro.
Then that's pro. Yeah. When you strip them of all the fiber and all the nutrients that come in an apple and you just drink the juice, that's definitely a con.
All right.
Yeah.
Pro and con. Fluoride.
Pass.
Yeah, who knows?
I'm not concerned by it, but I'm not really well read on it.
Oh. Gluten?
Oh, yeah. So that is, for people with celiac disease, definitely life-threatening, or at least health-threatening. I've talked to a lot of people who research gluten sensitivities, and it seems like they could potentially find something there. Just because they haven't explained something physiologically doesn't mean something isn't happening with people. It's benign enough if you are able to, if you take it out of your diet and you feel better, then fine. Mm-hmm. But the problem is most gluten-free foods, or foods that are processed to be gluten-free, end up being less healthy in terms of sugar and butter, and so then that could be negative. And also, if you feel like, if you're just, people will see like a gluten-free brownie and think, oh, it says gluten-free, so it's like healthy.
So that's not true.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
who would have seen that coming?
So many foods, they put it. Yeah. Well, so I think a lot of people, it ends up being then. It's such a complex question, right?
All right.
And then also, well, there's a thing. So like, if you go and you're reading all these things now, like the gluten is giving me Alzheimer's and cancer.
What?
Oh my gosh! Grain Brain, the #1 bestseller, David Perlmutter. That's his argument. And so then you go back and, oh my gosh, I've been giving my kid gluten. They should have been gluten-free. Like, that's terrifying, and I think that's wrong to scare people about. Like, so I think it's like the dietary demon of our age. If I just avoid gluten,
like
I'll be fine.
The new fad.
And that's distracting people from. Most people want to think about like probably 2 or 3 things to direct their diet, and they like quick yes/no answers, and not think about their diet beyond that. And if they use that space for gluten, and they don't have celiac disease, it's probably bad for public health.
Okay, that's like a weak con. That's pretty medium.
Long answers, but I tell you that's not my
Yeah, no, that's your jam. That's cool.
I appreciate the pro con.
Affordable Care Act pro con.
I think it was it got millions of Americans insurance, so it's really hard to say that on the whole it is bad.
Pro, just go for it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, also the thing is about being a journalist, like I'm careful not to be an advocate, like for anything other than.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like reason and truth. If that doesn't sound too high-minded, but as soon as you start taking a position, you bias yourself, and you know this in academia more than anything. Like if I were to publish a book on the benefits of veganism, like it becomes really hard for me to accurately interpret any study thereafter that's contrary to my claims.
Yeah.
Like I'll just want to not believe it,
right?
If it's saying that meat is great for people, even as hard as I could try.
Yeah.
So the fewer times you like really dig in, until you're like, okay, there's seriously like people should not be denying climate change. This is dangerous. Then. And still, you got to be open-minded to the future, like to science moving in different directions, and thinking, okay, well, maybe carbon emissions aren't as destructive as we thought. Like that's a potential, but like down the road, you have to be open to that idea, even if you've dug in as hard as we all have.
I mean, that's like the line Matt Ridley is pushing, where he's like, he's a journalist, but he's kind of like, maybe not, even with climate change. But
well, no, I mean, I'm not pushing that line. I'm just saying that, like, as a scientist, that's what makes people believe you. I think you're not an ideologue. You're not out there to selectively say, like, listen, I'm for the Affordable Care Act, which means, therefore.
No, it's a hard balance because you want to avoid motivated reasoning, but you also, I would think, should want to avoid maybe like excessive relativism or like not, because like there is a right answer about something. We might not know it yet.
There's
definitely a right answer. No, especially
it's true
about how the body works. Like we don't know what the right answer is, but there are like answers.
Yes, there are.
People thought lead was fine.
I think food is a great example of that. Like it's actually because so many people think we don't know anything about nutrition. Like everybody's got their own theory, and eggs are in 1 minute, eggs are in out another, and butter maybe is good or it's back now. So that is the field that makes it possible for someone to come in and say, you know what it is? It's gluten. And no, I know that none of the scientists on the official dietary committee said that it's bad for everyone, but it is. And if you believe that there's chaos and you don't know, no one knows anything, then you become susceptible to the demagogues.
Yeah, so it's probably really hard to like sustain that middle ground.
But okay, no, I mean it's been I think it's been a pro for people.
Yeah.
The Affordable Care Act.
Yeah. Good. So, of all of the advice that you give people, like with the web series and things, is there anything that you just like do not do? And you just like
health-wise?
Like, you're like, this is evidence-based medicine. You should definitely like, get up and walk around when you're at work and like not sit all the time or,
it's really like I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't really care about it. So I actually do all these things.
Yeah.
And to the point that, I mean, I had a standing desk like a long, long time ago, and not like people are like I just because I felt like it was unhealthy to sit, and covering the food system enough has made me think that I should not contribute to the industrialized farming of animals, and which is too bad because I like food that involves them. So, but I stopped.
Is it for ethical reasons also, or is it mostly just?
I mean, I partly, but I think it's mainly environmental, and I think that's what you're seeing most people coming away from now, just saying like, farming of cattle is as destructive to the environment as all transportation combined, and you're just thinking, like, people are willing to take up Priuses and then think that they're okay, but you could do a lot just by, and you don't need to be extreme either. Like, I don't want to be like monotonic in that thought. I actually think that a lot of people could do a lot of good if they just cut back 20 or 30%.
Yeah.
You know, but they think it's got to be all or nothing. If I'm not vegetarian, then I'm just gonna eat burgers every night or whatever, and or it's like burger, taco, pizza, like all of everything we have. Once you try to do it, you start realizing, oh my gosh, I go to these like nice salad places and they have maybe one salad that's vegan. So anyway,
So you practice what you preach.
Once you start immersing yourself in this, it's really hard to not. That's what I wonder about like other people who don't. Like, I mean,
I do wonder that.
Like, last I knew, like Mark Bittman, Michael Pollan, who I learned so much of this from, still don't. Like, in an ideal small planet, everybody eats like omnivorous diets, but with the planet of the population we have, it's just completely untenable.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Yeah.